I'd like to talk about FII in the case of obstetrics and how it relates to obstetrics. There was a review that was done on the characteristics of the perpetrators of FII, or I should say alleged perpetrators of FII, because one of the problems with FII is that a lot of the literature is just case studies, and it's a medical person writing a case study in medical literature which is reviewed by medical reviewers. So they're all coming from the same perspective, and they all believe that it's FII, because often paediatricians, they don't necessarily have detailed knowledge of things like autism and the co-occurring physical conditions, which is kind of fair enough because the research is only just starting to grow. But we now know that there are a lot of physical conditions that come along with autism. So they already think that it's FII, and there's not really any critique that gets done. So in this paper that was reviewing the research on what the characteristics are of the perpetrators, it said that in all of the research that they reviewed, where it mentioned the preterm delivery or miscarriages, 70% of the FII perpetrators had got a history of problems in pregnancy. So that is a huge number. So coming from more of a social science perspective, I would want to look at why. I don't have a fixed belief that they genuinely are FII perpetrators. So my first thought was instantly, well, there's something going on there. And I thought hypermobility and EDS, because that can affect pregnancies, but there's probably other medical conditions as well, probably something genetic. But in this particular paper, they went on to talk about cases of pregnant women who induce bleeding in pregnancy or even induce labour by using sharp instruments and rupturing membranes. And they describe it as the motivations were consistent with factitious disorder imposed on self, which is another version of Munchausen's. So Munchausen is when you make up the illnesses in yourself rather than Munchausen by proxy on another person, such as your child. So that seems to me completely implausible, that 70% of women have been doing this to induce miscarriages and problems in labour. But a much more plausible example would be a genetic condition that's not being looked into properly. So this is kind of an example of what you see happening in the literature and in practice with FII. Is facts get fitted to the narrative of the mum being a liar, parent blame, rather than it being that the doctors have got it wrong, the academics have got it wrong, and there's actually a massive social injustice going on here. So if you are an autistic parent, I don't want to overly worry people, but it is good to be aware of these things that are going on. There is a lot of parent blame out there, but there are things that you can do, and autistic parents UK are well aware of this sort of thing going on and might be able to help with signposting, and just be reassured that there are academics and people with lived experience who are starting to group together and talk about this sort of thing. There's research being done. I'm doing a PhD on it. There's been research on parent blame more generally, but it's something to be aware of anyway, that there's a lot of bias that goes on, and autistic parents being blamed, kind of like an extension of the refrigerator mother theory in the 60s, where mothers used to be blamed for the child being autistic. It's just still a culture of parent blame out there.